Welcome to the PharmaSource podcast. I'm joined on the podcast today by Vishnu Dwadasi, Director of Life Sciences at West Monroe. Vishnu has a fairly unique background across pharmaceutical operations, consulting, and business development, both from the sponsor side, the CDMO side, and now consulting at West Monroe, and has experience in operations, implementing technology solutions for life science companies, and of course, the whole business of drug development from early clinical stage to full-scale commercial manufacturing. Vishnu, welcome to the podcast today.
Yeah, hi Luke, thank you. I'm excited to be here today.
And I should also say you're going to be speaking at CDMO Live. We've got you on the panel for Follow the Money, which is a session about how private equity capital flows are reshaping the CDMO landscape. So looking forward to you joining us there.
Yeah, definitely. It'll be a great experience. Excited to be on the panel and really talk about the experience and what I'm seeing in the market on the PE side.
We're only recording this just at the start of March, but it's been a very busy year so far. Before we jump into it all, maybe we could start by giving a bit of an overview of your experience, because as I mentioned at the top, you've been working across many different companies, including BioDuro, PII, West Monroe. What sort of experience does that give you from all those different sides of the pharma space?
Yeah, I had the opportunity to start my career at Catalent Pharma Solutions, which really gave me a good understanding of manufacturing, project management, business development, and then from there moved to other CDMOs, jump into consulting. I also worked for a biotech startup called Ashvatha Therapeutics, where I led clinical supply manufacturing, really managing a large network of CDMOs and pharma testing labs to really understand the CDMO sector from the buyer side as being part of a CDMO as well. And what we're seeing here historically, CDMOs were, hey, a large pharma company might have a product that's low margin or need a second supplier. And it was a contract manufacturing organization. And what the evolution has been is, hey, now they're more development partners, right? The D is part of CDMO. The development part is becoming more and more of a focus. And it's not just, hey, here's a tech transfer package, please manufacture it when I send you a PO. It's like, hey, we have a very special product. We want to develop this with you from phase one, take it to commercial. And I think CDMOs have done a great job, kind of gaining that depth and experience over the last 10, 15 years. And CDMOs are also thinking about their pipeline of leaders, how to recruit. And I think really there's been more maturity on that side of the house as well. So, we're seeing CDMOs that are large, like Catalent and Thermo Fisher. We're seeing medium size. We're seeing much smaller CDMOs in the space that are very focused and specialized in certain delivery technologies like spray drying or hot melt extrusion. So there's just a lot more experience, depth, and understanding of technologies where, really they're becoming truly a development partner for biotech startups, mid-sized companies, and larger pharma.
And maybe if you could give us a bit of an overview of the types of projects you get involved in with West Monroe.
Yeah, on the West Monroe side, we are a management consulting company. We span multiple industries and functional areas. I specifically support life sciences, one of the leaders of the practice. And we do traditional management consulting type work, focused in technology, but we also have a very mature M&A practice. And I support a lot of the M&A work for acquisitions on the buy side, sell side, carve outs as well. And been a lot of activity so far since Q4 of last year into this year of
Is it a busy market?
A lot of activity, right? A lot of PEs are reaching out to say, hey, we want to evaluate X target. Or, hey, we've recently acquired a couple of organizations. We want to integrate them. How do we best do that from a technology perspective, operations, culture? So a lot of activity. I think, these businesses are revenue generating, right? It's different from, a biotech company where we have to rely on a technology to go through clinical trials and approval. You already have a business that's generating revenue, have the right people in place. Now it's investing in process and technology to drive efficiency and throughput to increase, revenue and, profitability. And I think that's where PEs are really looking at this space, in general, more focused than looking at a biotech startup.
And are there any particular technologies or modalities which you'd say are particularly interesting at the moment from a private equity point of view?
The large molecule space is hot.
Mm.
I would say cell and gene therapy continues to be another area where we're seeing investment. But traditional small molecule is still a very important part of pharma and important for patients today. So I think all these areas are important for investment, not just for PE companies acquiring a company, but even internally for CDMOs to continue to invest in technology to drive better patient outcomes, drive efficiency, drive compliance. So I think there's multiple areas where CDMOs and companies can invest today.
Great, thank you. Something I'd be interested in getting your perspective on is what it looks like for the CDMO post merger in terms of the integration. Those are the types of projects you get involved with, I think. I mean, it'd be great to understand what that process looks like from post merger integration, how you can integrate systems or not integrate it. I mean, what are the types of challenges and projects which you get involved
Well, it's definitely a loaded question.
with?
Integrating companies from any perspective is challenging. Really, from the technology side, it is, very difficult, right? We need to understand the maturity of, each of the businesses. How are they using systems today? We can't just say, hey, you're using SAP as your ERP and,
Mm.
oh, that's going to work across both businesses. We need to understand how are they using it? Are they using manual processes and ERP? I think there's just a lot of evaluation that needs to be done. And you need to run probably system selections. What's the right selection for the future state? And, part of all of this is change management and training, right? Not just for technology, but hey, how do we harmonize operations or processes or people?
Mm.
And I do think a major miss I've seen in general is you need to bring the entire new organization along for the journey, right? Not just the leadership
Mm.
team, just everybody has to be involved because it is high effort. And, it's actually interesting for me because I started at Catalent right after it was carved out from Cardinal Health's pharmaceutical technology services business. And, I was part of that journey as I
Mm.
got fresh out of college of, oh, we're going to actually be a new standalone company. We have to integrate all these different sites. Catalent continues to make a lot of acquisitions. And it's tough. Change is tough. And I think, really it's important to make sure that everyone's along for the ride. We we manage the change, manage the training. But these types of projects require input from the leadership all the way down to folks on the shop floor.
Yeah, much more than just a logo change or a rebadging exercise.
Absolutely. Yep.
What kind of advice could you share on that? I mean, particularly having been through it yourself from the internal perspective, are there any particular stumbling blocks to avoid or things you'd recommend for someone who's going on that journey?
Yeah, I think you have to strike the right balance of making a decision on, harmonizing a process or bringing in a technology versus being paralyzed by analysis. Hey, what's the
Mm.
best for the company, right? You don't have to continue to check all the boxes, but we have to get 80% there. You have to get moving because the longer you take, it's going to be hard to keep engagement for the company, right? Because there's a lot of change happening. The longer you have that change journey, becomes more challenging for the entire organization.
So let's talk about AI and some of the ways that in your experience, some of the ways you've seen that being used effectively, because Meta investing what 60 billion in AI this year, 2025, there's so much happening within drug discovery. There's some really interesting applications for how it can be used at that early stage discovery. When it comes to manufacturing operations and development, generally, it feels like it can be a bit slower within a GMP environment. So it'd be great to get your perspective on what does and doesn't work when it comes to using data science in that kind of environment.
Yeah, I mean, to your point, I think a lot of AI focus so far has been on the discovery side or commercial marketing side for,
Mm.
sponsor pharma companies. What's lagging behind is the use cases for manufacturing. And I think, really on the CDMO side, the reason maybe for the lag is, a lot of companies have not invested in technology, so they're
Mhm.
still using manual processes, still paper-based. So their journey is still getting to, paper to glass.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
before they can even think about AI, they have to go through that step. But for the companies that are more mature, okay, you start thinking about, hey, where's your data coming from? Your ERP, your LIMS, your QMS. Is it centralized? Do you have a data lake that you can start leveraging these AI tools? And it all starts from a data strategy. You need to come in, have a consulting firm or your team think about this. Hey, where does all my data come from? How can I leverage this best? What are the right use cases for my organization to drive efficiency, right? And on
Mm,
the CDMO side, it could be supply chain optimization, right? On how you're procuring material. It could quality management, I think, has multiple use cases that really can have a high impact for the industry. And an example could be around deviation management, right? Can you use Gen
mm,
AI to draft a deviation for you? Can you use Copilot to help with pulling in data sources? To accelerate this type of process, eventually will accelerate revenue recognition for the company. So I think there's a lot of areas here that need to be really evaluated, but it starts
yeah,
with your data and data strategy.
yeah. Are you seeing many manufacturers putting into place some of those use cases you mentioned?
Yes, definitely. I mean, the larger manufacturers are, right? They're thinking
Mm,
about this. They're reaching out about, hey, what strategy would look like? Can we run a pilot maybe on a use case? I think the small to medium CDMOs are still trying to figure out how to become more technology forward.
mhm.
So I think everyone's in their own journey and it takes time. But I know AI is just like that new buzzword. Hey, can we use it today?
Yeah.
You can, but it's going to take time to really make it effective for your organization.
One of the outputs hopefully would be to drive a slicker, more efficient organization, revenue recognition. How important would you say it is to the valuation of the company? So, does having that digital infrastructure in place, is that favorable when it comes to acquisitions?
I would say yes. I mean, I think the right technology in place will show a buyer that you know how to drive efficiency, transparency to the business, which is important, right? Like when you're a paper-based company, hey, it's very difficult to pull metrics on what's happening on the
Mm,
manufacturing floor or across the org. Here, it's much easier to track this. And what we discussed before, implementing new technologies or integrating, that's a challenge, right? It's very expensive. There's a lot of risk to that. So if there's something already in place, that's a plus.
mm,
On the other hand, there are companies out there that have bought a lot of expensive technology and their ongoing costs are very high.
mm,
And they may not be even using this technology to the fullest extent or may not be even needed for that size of company. So that becomes, hey, I'm going to buy a company with a very expensive ongoing cost. That's something you might have to think about. Hey, maybe we have to right size this company
mm, mm.
after acquisition.
So it could be looked as a negative as well if they're investing too much in it.
Exactly. If you're maybe a $50 million revenue CDMO and you're spending 10 million on IT,
Mm,
there's a problem here,
yeah.
right? And that could be because you're part of a previous transaction and you have this expensive baggage from that previous owner that's caused this higher ongoing cost.
Mm,
But I will say that larger pharma are looking for CDMO partners that are technology forward. They have expectations sometimes to integrate with their systems. Have customer portals. Not just relying on email, right? Sending
mm.
your batch records and approvals through that process. It's easier if you have workflows that can track and manage whatever you're doing, like from a batch record review or C of A review or approval process. Any way you can accelerate and have that transparency of where things are at is just very valuable.
Are you seeing that now in RFPs and supplier selection that digital capabilities are becoming increasingly important?
Absolutely. We're seeing that they want to understand, I mean, what ERP you have, LIMS, QMS, those three are so critical for CDMOs. And as part of pharma or any even biotech startup company, they're going to evaluate you through a selection process, but also they
Mhm.
come in and audit, right? Because it's GMP manufacturing and they want to see your quality management system. They want to see how you're operating. And if it's paper-based or more manual, there's more risk for compliance issues. right? And I
Mm,
think,
mm.
this technology can drive compliance, which is very critical. And being part of multiple FDA audits, even the FDA wants to see companies invest more on the technology side.
When you're advising sponsors around CDMO selection, there's the digital side of things. What other critical factors are there that you'd recommend that clients build into their evaluation process, in your experience?
Number one, you never want to just select a CDMO because your buddy's the CEO of that organization.
Mhm.
And, I've seen that in the past. And it might feel great that, hey, you have something delayed and you pick up the phone and call the CEO, but that's not the right way of selecting the
Mm,
right partner, right? You have to figure out what's critical for your business, right? Evaluating the QA processes, understanding the customer service, technical expertise, and cost, right? I think all these different factors are very important. So before even going into a CDMO selection, have a cross-functional team get together, figure out that framework of what's important, and really evaluate the CDMO properly to make sure it fits your needs.
mm,
For me, maybe I don't need customer service as much because I understand the sector well and I'm going to drive the project myself, but technical expertise is high on my list. I need someone as a partner to help me for the next 5 years developing my product and to getting it to through clinical trials. So I think it's just important to make sure you have that framework and approach. So when you're going into audits or selection processes, your entire team's aligned on how to make the selection.
There's been a lot of change, let's say, over the last couple of months, a lot of movement. I mean, what would you say the major trends are that are emerging, and how the CDMO landscape is likely to be reshaped over the years ahead?
I think the positive area now is, the Trump administration is really focused on bringing manufacturing back to the US. So I
Hmm.
think we're going to see a lot more of like the large pharma, even actually all types of sponsor side clients, moving manufacturing back to the US, moving away from potentially China and India. And, I think on the big pharma side, there's a lot of focus on the GLP obesity drugs. And I
Hmm.
think you might be seeing a lot more companies focus in those areas. You might be seeing big pharma companies acquiring more sterile fill finish sites to support these drugs. And we've already seen a lot of M&A activity over the last few months on the PE side and large pharma side. And I think this is going to continue. But as you discussed earlier, now you have to integrate companies, you have to look at technology. So I think there's going to be just a lot more investment in the space as well, which,
Mm.
I hope that drives efficiency, compliance, more effectiveness within the space to really help the patient at the end of the day, making sure we have the right drugs quickly, for them. And, probably in the next couple of years, we're going to definitely see more AI on the manufacturing floor, right?
Yeah.
And, really being able to understand, hey, this might be a potential situation on the line that could lead to an out of specification. I'm going to know that early on in the process. So we're going to be able to save batches, be able to really deliver faster for patients. And I think it's going to be really, really interesting to see how the entire sector kind of shapes up in the next 2 years.
Would you anticipate there being consolidation, perhaps? It's still a very fragmented marketplace.
Yeah, we're going to see a lot of consolidation. We're going to see large pharma making acquisitions, PE making acquisitions. On the PE side, I think the exit is more interesting now. It's not just selling to a larger CDMO or another PE. It could be Eli Lilly coming in and saying, "Hey, I want this sterile fill finish facility," right?
Yeah.
So I think it's going to be an interesting market, and I do like the fact that the brand of the CDMO is just not a contracting partner, it's a development partner to really help you through the development and commercialization of your product. So
Mm-mm.
yeah, hopefully we see more and more investment in the space and we can become more technology forward. I would definitely like to see CDMOs co-investing with companies more,
Mm.
right? I think it's just been a relationship of contract, sign, execute instead of, hey, let's really understand your product. What's the potential commercial market for this? Should we co-invest
Hmm.
and be a true partner instead of just, a quote unquote partner because we have a contract together? And I think that'll really maybe shape the industry a little bit differently. And we talked about increased cost for some of these large pharma clients or biotech startups that are manufacturing in China or India. Hey, we'll co-invest, bring the cost down, and once this product commercializes, we'll take some royalties or something on the back end, which might also just change like the per cost of a tablet or a vial, for some of these companies.
Yeah, that's very interesting, isn't it? So like more creative JV co-investment models.
Exactly. I think there's more opportunity for creative deal structures across the sector, and it doesn't have to be, hey, this batch is going to be $200,000.
Yeah.
Sign the contract.
Vishnu, thank you so much for your time today. Really, really good speaking to you and looking forward to catching up with you again at the World Trade Center, Rotterdam.
Thanks, Luke. I appreciate it.
Experience the future of contract manufacturing at CDMO Live 2025. Join us at the World Trade Center Rotterdam on May the 7th and 8th, 2025 for an exclusive event that brings together the sharpest minds in biopharma outsourcing. For 2 days filled with market insights, best practices and partnering. So head to cdmolive.com to download the agenda and to book your ticket.